Okay, so welcome to Expat Migrations. I'm Mickey Supreme, and today we're gonna discuss moving to Canada in 2023. Is it worth it? Canada is very big on immigrations. The IRCC just announced they're pushing to have 1.5 million new residents in Canada within the next 3 years. That's a massive population increase. I mean, think of many small islands and countries with smaller size populations. 1.5 million movement of people. That's almost 2/3 of the population size of most small countries. So this video is about going into the cost of living in Canada, right? We just come out of 2 years of lockdown. There's inflation, there is rising costs in terms of food, housing affordability, and accommodation is at an all-time high. And there's mass hysteria about whether Canada is still a place people should live, raise family, and work. And we're going to jump into that right now, and we're going to go into the cost of living breakdown. And this is average data pulled from StatCan for a single family household, and this is what the typical cost of living looks like within a 1 year period. And we're going to go through all the bills and the common expenses that one has to pay, that is really mandatory to simply survive and keep living in Canada. So stay tuned for the breakdown. Okay, so let's jump into the expense, right? So we're gonna discuss rent, water, gas or heating bill, home insurance, electricity, car insurance, your car payments, car maintenance, typically daycare if you're coming with children, and based on this data, it's for the household with one living child. And then your grocery bill and other miscellaneous fees that may, hit you in the pocket every now and then. So on a typical 12-month basis, the cost of living month by month for rent in most livable cities where you can find work and there's a decent population. So you think about on the outskirts of the GTA, so that's like your Toronto, your Mississauga, and your Brampton. You look at other cities like Montreal, Ottawa. Won't be touching on Vancouver, but other provinces, this cost of living, according to the data, is on average is what you can expect to pay. So rent, we have it at $2,000, and this is maybe pre-pandemic. If you're coming now, you can expect to pay at least $500 to $1,000 extra for a standard three-bedroom. What's that word? Standard 3-bedroom townhouse, right? Water, that's $85. Your gas heating, that's coming in at $151 per month. And this is averaged out over, a 12-month period. So in winter, the bill can go way higher. So this is based on an average data. Also, we have home insurance. There's a little aircraft flying over, so just give us a minute and then we're gonna push through. Okay, so we broke at gas and heating, which is $151. Electricity coming in $122. Car insurance can look like $180 per month. Your car payments, if you take a loan and you didn't buy your car outright cash, you're looking at, on average, $250. It can be higher, especially for new immigrants without any credit history. You could be looking at a 20 to 30% interest rate And I'm speaking from experience because I had a 19.99% interest rate, and that was simply because the dealer had some type of favor with me. He simply wanted to get the car off the lot, and it also matters at the time of year. I bought that car in the dead of winter, so I was lucky to have a 20% interest rate without any credit history. And mark you what was working for me at the time. It was a job relocation, an international move. So there was some type of paperwork in terms of salary and income that kind of tilt the scales in my favor. But you could expect to pay somewhere like that at a premium for new immigrants. And to maintain the car, an average that can run you $400 per month, and that does include gas. And depends on how far you have to commute for work. And if you're doing Uber, your cost is going to look way different. Daycare, you're looking at $100 easily, and that's the bare minimum, for parents thinking of relocating with at least one child. If it's 2 kids, you could expect to double that daycare cost. Your internet, in terms of your home internet plan, on average, you're looking at $50 monthly. And the service, depending on some network, it's not as excellent and high speed as you would expect, but it's still reliable, and that's a good thing, especially for remote workers. And now your mobile plan, if you're traveling, you're on the go, you have to commute, your type of job is typically on the road. So example, if you're going to do a taxi driver, you're a chauffeur, you're doing truck driving as well. Look into a good mobile and data plan, because that could be your lifeline, especially in colder months. You don't want to wind up in an accident on the road and you can't reach out to anyone. Now groceries, depending on how much you eat. If you're a big foodie, I'm telling you, Canada is going to cut your appetite. It's going to cut your appetite because the bill to eat properly, you're looking to spend at least $1,500 per month, especially if you have at least one child in the household with you. And I must say, the quality of food here, it's not the best, it's not the most excellent. Take for example, you could go to Food Basic and you're shopping for some fruits and veg. You're gonna find out that a lot of these stuff are coming out the cold storage, because when you think about it, Canada, the landscape, it doesn't grow a lot of tropical fruits like your orange. A lot of it is shipped over from Spain, places like Florida and Mexico, South Africa as well, and other key export markets that distribute food, especially the tropical fruits and veg that definitely does not grow here in Canada. And then your miscellaneous bills, you can look to spend about $200, small fees that pops up, like maybe parking fees. You got to buy something extra for your household, maybe Drano, your sink, or it is clogged up. Those are some unaccounted expenses you can expect to pay. And that's very, very, very typical. And that's on average, guys. So the total cost on average monthly in terms of expense, based on the calculation I just shared with you, that's 6,018 Canadian dollars. And over a 12-month period, this is $72,216 for household expense. So it's not cheap. If you're thinking about relocating in Canada, you have to calculate and factor these expenses. It's on average. It can be a little lower, right? You may want to deduct maybe $12,000 if it's just a couple relocating. If it's a single person, you could drive that cost down much further by maybe shaving off an extra 15,000, 20 grand at most, depending on how frugal you are and what type of lifestyle you live. But major adjustments and your lifestyle, it's really centered around the high cost of living here in Canada. So you definitely have to account for that when you're budgeting, especially the type of job you're going after. Based on research, it takes the average immigrant up to 7 months to actually land a job within their industry And I must say, that's not 100% of the immigrants who relocate to Canada, especially if English is not your first language. You're not working in certain sectors, maybe like IT, for example. And as a nurse, you have to become recertified before you start making a decent salary, in contrast to other Western countries like the US. Salaries here in Canada is not as high as one would expect, but it's a peaceful country. It's still beautiful. It's very vast. There's a lot to see. There's a lot to do. And, like anywhere else, you have to adapt. And there's a lot of give and take from your previous country of origin. If you were able to have an easy nightlife for zero cost, you have to spend and come up out of your pocket when you're here in Canada to have some type of entertainment. And this list, obviously, it does not include your Netflix or your Disney Plus, those things. I would suggest you keep that for your mental health, especially during the long, cold winter months. I mean, if you're living alone, right, there's so much time you could spend on the phone with someone and making new friends and new connections here. You're going to find it very challenging and for persons actually to open up. And if you move here during the pandemic, it was very tough for a lot of persons who relocated during the pandemic because, persons who were isolated, persons did not feel safe to interact and go out. But if you're considering moving to Canada in 2023, it may be a bit different. We don't know if there's another big shutdown happening. We don't know what's around the corner, but all things being equal and things are normalized, these are your basic living costs, important to calculate before you locate into Canada.